Hey, everybody. Welcome to the inaugural podcast of Rabbit Hole. My name is William Crandall.
Go ahead, Dave.
Are you the host, Will? Or are you?
I am now. Somebody's got to be.
I mean,
he's got the giant microphone. It kind of fits.
Yeah.
I hope that's a microphone.
I mean, he does have the giant microphone. I think it fits.
I think it fits too.
Definitely.
I mean, I definitely should not be the host with my 1990s technology right now.
Well,
Yeah.
Hopefully,
You're using America Online.
Hopefully, once social distancing is over and we're rich and famous podcasters, we can have our own studio and all be in the same room together. But
That'd be sweet.
until then, let's get an introduction of everyone out of the way. And I think Nathan wanted to jump right into something. So,
Yeah.
all right. My
man.
name is William Crandall.
He is Will. I am Ray.
I hate you all. I hate every single one of you.
Okay.
My name is Ray. And yeah, I guess we started this as a radio show, 2 years ago now? It's been 2 years running, so I just have an external hard drive full of these random conversations, but I'm glad it's finally catching on. It's weird how I was mentioning this last week to Ava, like this idea started. I was like, oh, I want to get a podcast going. I want to do this. I want to do that. But it took 2 years to finally get it going. But now that it's going, I'm super stoked. So
Yeah, I'm Nathan Cubes, and I know that there are these things called podcasts.
Yeah.
we are recording now
There's a
too,
dude.
Nathan.
Yeah, we are definitely.
There's some guy, I forget his name. He was in fighting or something.
Yeah, the guy who was on
Regis or
TV,
something.
Yeah.
and then he went to
News radio first off.
what is it? Yeah. Oh yeah.
There's one more person in our queue who needs to introduce himself.
Yeah. So I'm Kyle.
Hi,
I can't believe
Kyle.
I just hung up on my mother for this, but
Like I said, man, that's dedication to the cause.
it's to the cause, man. To the cause.
Dedication to the cause. So yeah, exactly like what you were saying, Ray. So we all met each other almost a year ago at Western Colorado University, and we were doing this exact same thing, the Rabbit Hole show, as a radio show on the student radio. And it was our time once a week to get together, talk about what's going on. But just as the name of the show implies, we're just four ADHD associated people who have a tendency to go very off topic and dive deep into the rabbit hole of whatever interests us. And I think it's something that's a lot of fun to just talk and hang out. And especially now that I'm in Connecticut, but you all are still in Colorado, this is a cool time for us to still get together and have these conversations. So I'm really excited and hope for many more of these to come.
Yeah, I mean, when you left, it was like, oh man, like finally, that's the last of Will I'll ever see.
Seriously.
Just
No.
kidding.
Unfortunately for you, I'm a good friend and really persistent.
Shit. He wants he wants a podcast every week now.
Wait, what?
Wait, what? No. Yeah, no, this is I think we've entered this whole new like realm now within COVID-19, and like this is par for the course,
Definitely.
So I'm not
The question for me is, why is our podcast going to matter?
it'll make I think it'll make
now.
Go ahead and start with that one.
Putting us on the spot now. Nate.
whoa, Nathan in tiny glass. What
I
are you
Go on.
drinking?
Mr.
I think
Mr.
it's a
High
good moment
Society
because-
over here. Holy cow.
Wait,
Literally,
what?
my
does-
roommate is
Why
playing
does
guitar to James Blunt right now. You're beautiful. It's
I
great.
would like to start.
It's great.
Why do we matter? Why does any of this matter? Tell me.
Why does anything matter? Who are we? Where are we going? What's going on? Well, we're gonna answer. We're gonna answer none of those questions.
Yeah.
That's a really good
Zero.
question.
What are you drinking? Whiskey or are you drinking Truly in
It's
that glass?
bourbon, man. It's
Okay.
Because look, man, it might make
Drinking
me
Bon Viv.
a little alky, but the fact of the
Dear
matter,
Bon Viv, sponsor us.
beer is like it. Every time I have beer, I have like physical side effects of some kind. Like it's beer and it's like a whole lot of calories. Where if you're trying to get a good buzz going, why not just have something that is just like boom, the alcohol, it hits you like a sack of bricks, and then
Actually,
dosage.
this is 0.1
Yeah.
grams of
Smoke a
sugar.
joint. You don't like smoke a joint
That's
like
keto approved.
infused with like a lasagna, right? Like you could just smoke a joint. Anyway,
So it's about
kind
efficiency
of how
right
I
now
feel
for
about
you.
it. It's like
Yeah, it's about
I-
efficiency.
That's how I feel about caffeine too. You know, like if I get like a Starbucks, I need a blonde quad shot because you get the blonde beans, which are like they're roasted for less time. So the darker the bean, the more caffeine has been burned off. So like if I'm drinking coffee, I want a quad blonde shot. So it's like, 300 milligrams of caffeine just like, boom, like through my system. Yeah.
quad blonde.
But
Woo.
Man.
I've never gotten there with alcohol.
Speaking of browser histories, heyo.
Quad. Oh, jeez.
That's so funny. Well, Nathan, I hope that answered your question as to why we're doing this.
That was a great answer to your great question.
Yeah, I'm convinced.
I'm convinced. I don't know about you all, but the reason I'm doing it is because it's fun. It's great just to talk and hang out and see where this rabbit hole goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm a big believer in conversation and learning through
Yeah.
conversation. And we might be similar, but we have different morals, values, personalities, life experiences,
Mm-hmm.
And so despite our similarities, we're very different. And yeah, there's definitely times where it's like some of my favorite times, and I mean, most of us are in higher ed here. Kyle as well, just on the Kyle's on the client side though. Yeah.
Right. I really thought you were going to call me out, and I was almost going to.
Oh no, I not. But I mean, but no, I mean, my favorite aspects of student affairs are those conversations that I have with people, and it's like, I think one of the reasons we started the radio show is because we're having these conversations that we're just like, man, like more people in society need to hear these conversations. Like, yes, sometimes we get a little bit goofy. We go down the rabbit hole, and it's like, what are we even talking about? Or you start backtracking it. I get really goofy. I get really weird. But
Kyle.
But no, I think more people need to hear some of these conversations, like, especially when you start getting into the spiritual, the philosophical, the political, those are the conversations that people aren't having nowadays.
Yeah.
Especially, politics. Oh, Kyle's gone.
He's probably getting a phone call. He's recording.
Yeah.
And you know what, Ray?
God.
Ray, I think echoing off of that, I think the art of a conversation is something that unfortunately is on its way out the door. At least it feels that way. The art of a conversation is, and when I think of an actual conversation, I think of a dialogue in a sense of no matter where the journey of that conversation goes, you're all going to end up at the same point and continue to respect and hold each other in high regards. Like you can have differencing of opinions, you can have differencing views, but all in all, we're still humans. We just want to talk, have a conversation and dialogue. It's not inherently about trying to change your mind or having you think exactly the same way I am. It's just that I'm different, you're different. Let's talk and be merry.
Yeah. I think I've told you all, but when I was in the Navy, we would have these conversations on watch that would last from
You were in the Navy?
6 hours. And those conversations were incredible because, I mean, you would get to know everything about the people around you. That is something. What was that?
I totally didn't have the same response to that answer.
Did you not have those conversations that lasted forever?
Okay. How do we want this PG-13 or R or what?
Let's say I would say crossing.
I would say let's keep it PG. But what we can say is oh yeah, some funky stuff would come up. You would talk about everything.
Yeah.
But
the adult film industry. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
Yeah. Or how about this?
For 12 hours straight.
Kyle, tell me that you did not at least once have the most real conversation about race with somebody of a different race who was a good friend who you could literally say exactly how you felt about anything. Ask questions that you like wouldn't feel like you could ever ask anyone else.
Well, actually, yeah, my friend Dominic, I'm not going to use his last name, but
I know
he's
who you're
actually
talking about.
from Baltimore, and he came out to me as bisexual, actually,
Mhm.
very recently. And that was kind of like a thing that, even though I was out of the military, he could still, after not talking to me, not returning his calls for a few months, he could still, I finally answered, finally picked up, and he was like, hey man, I just feel comfortable telling you this, and I've wanted to tell you this for a while, but I came out as bisexual. And I could tell the pain in his voice and where he was coming from, especially where he grew up. And being African American, and also being from a place that's known, as kind of like, the hood per se. But he just really opened up to me, and he really cared about the things I had to say and where I stood on the subject. And he was like,
Right.
you were the guy that I wanted to talk to.
Wow. See, that's power. That's profound. And that's what I mean. Those are those kind of like very real conversations that you can have now. And everything under the sun, like that's the good end of the spectrum. Then there's like everything down to the very worst side of the spectrum, where things that
Okay.
I think
Nathan's
of
like, I
examples,
said PG.
and I'm like, I'm not. No, it's not even the PG thing. It's like I am not saying that to another living soul. The fact that that's in my head is nobody ever needs to know that like, that I know that. Well, okay, I'll give you. I have definitely heard Holocaust jokes. There you go.
Oh yeah.
I mean, and I mean, you're like. What I will say to that is,
Can't laugh, Ray.
the best response to a Holocaust joke I've ever heard. We had a first class. This guy tells this like very witty Holocaust joke. He thinks he's just really funny. And our first class that was sitting there, it was like, he looks over at him. He goes, "King, I'm surprised that a little shadowy, fiery figure of flame doesn't appear next to you right now and drag you into the depths of hell." I was just like,
why did the two
that
Navy
response
guys
Very
on the
specific.
podcast?
Yeah.
that is the response. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
level of thought in that
that's what we're
response
all thinking. Right?
mind-boggling.
And so, for both of you being in the military, like, do you feel like you've, outside of the military, is there a sense of brotherhood that you found in other places outside of that? Or is it like so specific to the Navy
Yes.
and or the military?
Types, but again, like, here's the thing. This is the thing. Military is a lot like it's not voluntary. You're not being asked to do things. You're being told very specifically, you're going to do this thing.
Yeah.
And some of those things really suck. Like, you're going to stand right here in the rain,
Yep.
sky that you don't like at all.
Embrace the
You're
sun.
going to be standing here for
Embrace the
6
suck.
hours or more. And it's, oh, by the way, it's midnight. You're going to be there from midnight till 6 in the morning.
Yeah.
That's your job for today.
Sounds pretty awful.
Oh, on top of all the other stuff you did today, which I know you're tired, but you still need to do this.
Yeah.
So it's a very specific set of circumstances.
Yeah.
That is
I
true.
agree. If you weren't talking crap for multiple hours,
Yeah.
you weren't doing it right. I mean, that's one of the things I don't miss about it, is that here I'm able to actually, be myself and be more open and more caring and more vulnerable to subjects that I actually care about, rather than kind of have to hide it behind
Thanks,
this
buddy.
wall, especially being in security forces and then being, an ordnance tech. But you just had to hide everything that kind of mattered in your life, or you
Any
would get
weakness
blasted
would be
for it.
pounded out of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
it's a different feeling. It's a wonderful feeling to be out. I'm so glad I did it. But you see more
Great.
of human like interaction and better humanity outside than you do inside.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you have an example of that, Kyle?
I mean, seriously, like people were getting, caught up for having emotions. You couldn't show your emotions. You couldn't. I know some people who got literally caught just crying and like suffering, and they would be kicked out of like hospitals and kicked out of care facilities where all they were trying to do was trying to help themselves and figure stuff out and have somebody to listen to them. And they literally booted them out and said, hey, you don't have a problem. You need to go back
pull
to
your
work.
shit together.
Yeah.
So do you think there's still kind of this toxic masculinity, or that's like, I guess, yeah, that's
I
kind
stay away from that subject. I just
I'd
think
stay away from
The
There-
RD will.
no. This is the key. I'd stay away from the second word of that.
Yeah.
yeah.
Toxic. Period.
Mm.
I think,
So just toxic personalities.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
There you go. That's fair.
it's ingrained because most of the military that people want to see or see in movies and see, that's not actually why you're on the inside, is that these hardened bodies, these, battle of, the masculine woman or the masculine male and stuff like that, and just to put labels on everything. And that's a common misconception because we're all people at the end of the day, and we still, and it was a job for me. It wasn't a lifetime or a career I was going to do. It was literally a job, and I went to do my job, and I got mixed up in some emotional type trauma and stuff like that while I was in. But I just feel bad looking back on it, and I wish I could talk to some of those people more than I do now, just because it was very difficult emotionally and socially, that it didn't prepare me for the outside world at all. Like I find really hard to reach out to people and want to hang out with all these people, because I really do, but I just got so used to being, alone. And it just really sets you apart. Like you don't get to see your family. You don't get to see the friends you care about.
Yeah.
Especially in the Navy, you could be on deployment and not talk to anybody for weeks at a time. So all these people, when I get out, are like, hey, I feel like you don't reach out, or you're not trying to hang out with us. It's not because I don't care any less. It's because I got so used to it, and it was beaten into me that reaching out to people is a sign of weakness. So there's some things that I'm working on that I've had, thankfully, you guys, especially, honestly, to give you credit, Ray, definitely some of the people on your staff, a lot of credit for helping me kind of go with that.
They're a good bunch.
Yeah. What's still powerful for me to this day is giving someone like you a hug. Like it's good for me,
man.
For you, because like in the military, that's not, again,
dude, it means
there's no hugs, there's back pats. Like
everything to me.
Someone, it's like a
literally
clap,
just
clap
a hug,
on the back.
man. Like it means everything to me. And like I have to show this hard shell sometimes, but it's kind of dampening and it's kind of going away a little bit. But it's definitely something that I need to work on, and that I had to suffer through for 5 years. But you had a different experience than I did. And I know Ray's had a different experience, and Will has. And Will's battled through some of the most difficult things I've ever heard in my life. And I just want to say that I'm very passionate and compassionate for you guys, and that it's kind of hard for me to say that sort of stuff, but there's a lot of special people here. So
cheers to that. Yeah.
Kyle, we love you.
Nathan, take up your tiny little glass.
yeah.
Pinkies up, guys. Pinkies up.
Oh God.
So,
jeez.
No,
you know,
Kyle-
I literally, there's like not an experience you just listed that I didn't feel very similar to when I got out.
Yeah.
Here's one of the hardest things for me when I was reflecting when I got out was, and one of the, I think it's one of the probably the great unsung traumas that a lot of people in the military face, is I didn't like who I became when I was in. When we talk about the assholes that were in the military, I was that asshole. Like I was a bully. Like I was, 260 pounds, and I was like, I was an intense individual.
Yeah.
But then my leaderships, all my leaders were intense bullying individuals, and that was the world. But the reason I say that is what uncovered that for me. Years ago, I saw the movie Men of Honor.
That is a great movie.
It's such a. There's this scene where the Master Chief cuts the bag and makes all the tools fall to the bottom, and he's got to through the sand. And he's down there all cold and shivering. And I think it resonated with me because the fact of the matter is, I think I was one of the ones that rang the bell, or that like tapped out, that sort of forgoed my deeper self or my deeper ethos when I was in, to just sort of fit in and to just sort of survive. And I did that, and I don't like that I had to do that, and I wouldn't do that again, I don't think. But now, Kyle, interesting insight on that seeing that shadow side of me. I always, Ray probably heard me even talk about this in staff meetings and stuff, is now I always have this reference of who I don't want to be. I know exactly
that.
I may not know what I want to be in this world. I may not know like what my career is going to be or this, but I know what I don't want. I know exactly. And that's why, like, there's all kinds of jobs that can make me a whole lot more money, but I know I want to serve people. I know I want to love people. I know I want to be real. I know I don't want to be consumed in anger and frustration my whole life. And those are those things that, like, that's why I'm here. It's like I'm absolutely working for.
Yeah, seriously. This brought up a great point. For being a couple ADHD knuckleheads, Will and Ray, you guys have been so patient. So I want to hear, like, literally what experiences in your life have seriously allowed you to look back on yourself and be like, that's the person I don't want to be.
Yeah.
I actually, if you don't mind me jumping in, Ray. So there's an example I was actually thinking about when you said you were talking about the conformity that you adjusted to when you were in the military. And we've had, the four of us have had this conversation multiple times because Nathan and Kyle, you were in the military, both in the Navy, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So Ray and I were both coming from a Greek life background.
Yep.
Both the fraternities, different schools, different organizations and stuff like that. And we have I'm a Delta Sig represent. I don't have my shirt on because I'm sorry,
you're
Ray.
a phony. No, just kidding.
Well, sorry, Ray. I graduated. I don't need to prove anything to anybody anymore.
This is my favorite shirt, dude. It's a like baseball sleeve.
Okay. So being ADD again, I love that shirt because I advocated for a baseball jersey rush shirt for so long. All 4 years I wanted one. We never got one. I'm still really bitter about it. 10 years I've been a brother and I've never seen one. But anyway, so we've talked about this multiple times in the sense of brotherhood and that sense of, and we lost Kyle again.
I love that.
It's going to be great. So we've talked about that sense of brotherhood, camaraderie, and, working a part of something that's bigger than ourselves and all of that stuff. We've all had different experiences with that. And the example that I like to bring up is the culture of Greek life, at least in my organization, was if we make fun of you, we like you. That's a very common thing with most male groups, female groups. I feel like a lot of groups kind of gravitate to, if we're making fun of each other, we're vibing, we're zinging on each other. Like that's just kind of our niche. Had one brother in our organization, I just won't name any names, but he didn't always understand when we were doing that. I always thought that anytime we were ragging on each other, that it was just because we loved each other and we wanted to express it by making fun of them. Come to find out, a few years later, and sometimes in the moment, that he really didn't appreciate some of the jokes we were saying. But in the moment, in that culture, it's like, well, if I say something, then they're going to think I don't want to be their friend, so I might as well just go along with it, blah, 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 blah. And because of this, that person just does not associate with us anymore. Doesn't come to homecoming, doesn't respond to any of our texts or calls, like graduated and just stopped talking to us, and doesn't really want to be associated with us. He'll identify as a member of our organization, but doesn't want to claim his host institution because of that negative experience. And so I really wish I had the foresight to, or really be able to reflect and think, you know what, all jokes aside, you're still my brother and I still love you. If we can find a different way to show this affection, let's find it. And the reason I bring this up is because we recently crossed the 1-year anniversary of a school shooting that happened at University of North Carolina at Charlotte. And this particular brother actually transferred there, and I was working on his graduate degree at UNC Charlotte during that time. And this man, for as long as I've known him, has wanted to be in the military, but certain things have prevented him from being in the military. But he was a part of ROTC while he was at UNC Charlotte. And when the campus needed him, he jumped into action. He was able to find somebody who was, I think, hurt in the exchange, or I think he was shot or something like that. The person is okay. He jumped in and took off a piece of his clothes and bandaged the wound and made sure he was okay. And he got national recognition for it, for the help that he did on the campus during that. And this person is actually one of my pledge brothers. We went through this process together in our fraternity. And I reached out to him to say, I saw what you did. I'm really proud of you and I'm happy for you. And in that same message, because I've had 10 years to think about it, I was like, and I want to say that I'm sorry for how we treated you in college. And to this day, and this was a year ago, he's never responded to me, and I'll probably never hear from him because of that experience in college. And these are just lessons that I've learned, is to be like, you know what, it's okay to know your boundaries, and you got to know what your friend group is okay with and what you're not okay with, and just how to treat other people and find their comfortability. So that is just always, that's something that I wouldn't say haunts me per se, but it's a thing that I wish I could have done differently sometimes.
Yeah, I was also a part of Greek life, and it's interesting because I had a super negative experience.
Yeah.
And I also always wanted to be military. So, I mean, back in freshman year of high school, hell, even before that, they had the pull-up bar for the Marines at the Air and Water Show. And I was like, man, every year I had to do, I had to do my 20, you know what I mean? And I worked out with ROTC for 4 years on top of wrestling. And I love that intense masculine competitive environment. But I couldn't get in because of ADHD and because I was on medicine and stuff. So I was like, well, there goes my dream of being a Navy SEAL. Because that was ultimately the goal. It's I got to go to Coronado. God, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but I got to go to Coronado and I got to hang out with Navy SEALs for a day. And that was probably the highlight of my high school career.
Nice.
So I got to see the creature from the Black Lagoon. I got to see the Bell with the helmets lined up. They showed us all their guns and stuff. And I was as a teenage boy, it was just it doesn't get any better than this. But yeah, so anyway, so I joined Greek life because I went to college and I didn't know anyone there. But yeah, it's interesting that all this got brought up because and I'm also, as I'm talking right now, I can just feel myself drifting towards the rabbit hole. I'm really trying not to.
Get back in, Ray.
I know. My brain's don't do it, man. Not yet.
Hold on.
But no, I've been listening to Jordan Peterson, Joseph Campbell. And Alan Watson. I've been doing a lot of spiritual and just psychological analysis of where I'm at right now. And one of these common threads that I hear, and you can see it in Disney movies, you can see it in writings from ancient civilizations, you can see it in modern day mythologies, even like Harry Potter, is this dissension into chaos. And I definitely, and I descended into deep chaos, into the belly of the beast, right? It's like Joan of Arc, she gets swallowed by the whale. or he gets swallowed by the whale. No, it's a she. Yeah. And like that's to symbolize
Wait,
like
Joan of Arc?
is it he or is she?
She.
Yeah, but Jonah is a she.
Oh no,
Joan
no,
of
no,
Arc is a French knight. I just had
Yeah.
to, because if
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was Joan of Arc,
No,
that got
Jonah.
swallowed by a
Jonah
whale,
gets swallowed. Jonah
I just
gets
had to
swallowed.
just
I'm
wait a
mixing
minute.
my stories.
Wait a
Joan
minute.
of Arc in the Arabian desert. Yeah. No, but Jonah gets swallowed.
Those damn
right? And that
those damn desert whales.
I know that it reminds me of yeah, never mind. But yeah, so there's you get swallowed, you go enter the belly of the beast. Yeah, for me, I mean, my fraternity was 100% that. I to this day, I mean, I have to be so cautious around alcohol, because like it revealed to me who I could potentially become, right? One of the things that Jordan Peterson brings up is, we all rag on the Nazi, speaking of the Holocaust, like the Nazi guards, like how could they do that, right? And he's like, you would not be the one that stood up or housed the Jews. More likely than not, you're one of the people there burning the Jews in the oven. And he's like, so for you to be able to reflect on that and to realize that you have that potential to be evil is something that from that point you can now grow. Oh no.
Oh no.
And yeah, and so yeah, joining Greek life, I mean, the hypersexualization of women, the over indulgence on alcohol, marijuana, shit. There were dudes doing cocaine, hard drugs are all, there's totally a thing.
Yeah.
And like within a year, I mean, it was just like, I was like, who am I right now? I mean, and this is where that, you want to know why I'm in higher ed? Because Res Life saved my life. I mean, straight up. I had been in the hospital like 3 times for alcohol induced injuries, and just being a total knucklehead. Yeah, like, I mean, like the one instance, like this dude, I don't even know what he said, but like next thing I remember, I'm just on top of him, just like going to town, and my buddies pulled me off, boom, popped my shoulder out, and it's like, here I am in the hospital. And yeah, that year I applied to Res Life because my family needed help with money and stuff, and it's like all of a sudden I was like outside of that bubble, and like, man, yeah, I am that guy who does not talk with my fraternity brothers anymore. There are a couple of them who I'll still like one reached out to me like a couple months ago, and I was like, oh yeah, what's up, what's going on? Like he was one of the good ones.
Yeah.
But some of the dudes who I associated with, it was like I look back and it's like, man, scum of the earth, and I was like, and I was a part of that. And the worst part was I was one of those leaders, right? So this is where my leadership can so easily, it's just like water, it fills the vase it's in. I was the pledge leader. I was the pledge marshal. So I took in the freshmen, and I was the one who kind of more or less either they adjusted to our standards and our social norms, or they were kicked out. That was me. I was on exec board and all that stuff. So yeah, so when Kyle, when you were talking about all that stuff, it was like, man, like I might not have been in the military, but I sure as fuck like dealt with that kind of stuff as well. And that it is hyper masculinity though, Nathan. Like I do agree, like there is toxicity just in general, but when you get pockets of males like that, it is interesting how pervasive and present that cultural force of like, you need to be like this, especially in in a warrior culture such as yours, right? And even within the fraternity, like we were like the sports fraternity, and so we had to be athletic. The athletic prowess and domination was one of our like values, and so that underlined everything. And it was a horrible environment. I lived in house for a year, and it was the worst year of my life. I shit you not. I mean, you want to talk about weight gain just because of stress? Like I was up to like close to 200 pounds, just from drinking and trying to like, it was a form of like, I was trying to escape because I was in this horrible environment, whereas constantly having the hierarchy was constantly getting pecked at. So anyway, sorry, I'm dominating the conversation, but yeah.
No,
No, you're not.
I appreciate you sharing your experience. Like,
yeah,
I can, I think coming from a Greek life background, I can relate to it in a sense. I was fortunate enough to be a part of an organization. Like we've talked many times that our Greek life experience were like total 180 from each other. Like I was not a part of the hypermasculinity, we need to dominate at sports type organization. My organization really affiliated more with like, you know, brotherhood, community service. We want to be members of Greek life, but, you know, we don't need to always be that. We had a few members that were kind of like that, but as a majority, we really weren't. And that's why I was gravitated to them. And actually, I always like to say that, and this is true, when I was pledging, I didn't have a sip of alcohol. Like, they didn't force me to drink anything. They didn't force me to do anything I was uncomfortable with. I didn't have a sip of alcohol until the day I was initiated, was like the first time that I actually had something to drink because it was a celebration. But until then, it was like I haven't had anything. So it's always interesting to hear different people's perspectives on, you know, whether it be military, Greek life, whatever it is, we all have different perspectives and different lived experiences with it. But those experiences have always shaped us to where we are.
Yeah. Hey, quick thing. We have 5 minutes.
5 minutes. We didn't start until.
Are you the clock guy?
7:20. Yeah, he's the clock
I got to
guy.
get off at 8.
Oh, you got to leave it. You got to leave at 8.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I know it.
Man,
We've been on for about an hour.
Well, do you guys want to make this a short episode and then shoot for an hour next week?
Yeah.
That
No,
works.
totally.
So then how about this? Maybe we had the idea of last week to try to talk about what we have been doing during the COVID times to try to keep ourselves motivated and engaged. We want to quickly go around and say what rabbit holes we've been going down during this time of COVID and social distancing.
Yeah. So the big one for me is I went Ram Dass rabbit hole again, man.
What?
Ram Dass.
Ram Dass? Who's that?
Yeah, he's my favorite person ever, man. Ram Dass, that's a deep rabbit hole, man. He's my man. I love that man.
Spirituality stuff.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting.
Highly spiritual stuff. He's the man, though. I'm serious. Like, when I was a student at Western, I created an art piece for him that's like now in Netflix, and you can see it all over the place. But
cool.
I'm really affected by him.
Nice, man.
That's really cool.
I've been doing the Jordan Peterson, Carl Jung, Alan Watts rabbit hole. So also on a very spiritual kick right now. It's always good to.
Yeah.
I go in waves of like everything. You know, everything comes and goes. So
hearing you two talk about it is wanting to make me like just watch all of his TED Talks or listen to all of his recordings and just.
So I actually I've started listening. I'm about 6 lectures in. So one of the cool things that Jordan Peterson did was upload all his full lectures online. And I mean, so you can get a semester's worth of information from one of the greatest minds in psychology that we have right now. I mean, he is the 1% in terms of psychology.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, in terms of like papers written and like how he's so pervasive within the scientific and spiritual realm. And so I've been listening to all his lectures every night, all sorts of stuff. But yeah, those are the rabbit holes I've been going down.
Nice. What about you?
I've been doing kind of like a self journey into acceptance and relationships lately. I've been kind of trying to force a lot of my feelings that I have inwards, and that the battle I constantly have with myself about trying to be a better person, trying to focus that more outward and being accepting of kind of everything and anything in the universe that could, try and cause me pain, because I mean, I'm a small part of the universe, but I think together in this total compassion and acceptance policy can totally make a difference in the world. And so that's kind of what I've been doing, is kind of really focusing on kind of finally actually looking and bettering myself rather than just saying it and trying to get it out there,
Dude, that's awesome.
To quote Ram Dass,
I'd love to talk to you about Team Rubicon or some of the various ways to serve. Because it's funny, because in the military always talks about how we're about service to others, but I don't really think that's necessarily true in a lot of cases. But real service is that it's the spiritual silver bullet. You don't have to believe in anything, but if you serve humans, it's one of the most selfish things you do for yourself.
selfless.
No, selfish.
No. Hmm. I was gonna say, to quote Ram Dass, "I am loving awareness." You should look that up,
Interesting.
Kyle. I am loving awareness. It's one of my favorite songs ever.
Mhm.
I listen to it on
Same.
a daily basis.
That's so good to hear, man.
Oh yeah,
That's so
dude. I did yoga today, dude. When I found out my plants are
Oh,
stolen, I
heck
just
yeah.
blasted some loving awareness and did some
Hey, it's
yoga.
8:00 even. William, do you have one to finish off with?
Yeah, I unfortunately am not on a journey of spiritual awareness like everybody else. I've been kind of going through my own process of kind of figuring out what I'm doing, just with recently losing my job and moving back to the Northeast, kind of figuring out where I'm going and what my direction is. So I'm still in that process, but a first step in that process is this, getting the podcasting going. I got a new microphone. I'm kind of dedicating myself to kind of trying to create some content and getting my voice out there. But other than that, I'm kind of diving deep into some of my nerdier rabbit holes. Case in point being, obviously, everybody knows I'm a huge, huge Star Wars fan. I actually found the original radio drama of New Hope, Empire, and Return of the Jedi.
Mm.
And New Hope is like almost 5 hours of radio.
Dang.
It's a 5-hour radio show. And Mark Hamill voices Luke Skywalker again.
Wow. What doesn't that man do?
Seriously.
It's great. So I've been doing that, and I've been playing a lot of Diablo 3. And I'm not the biggest of video gamer, but I've been trying to do some video gaming, and Diablo 3 is just, that's another rabbit hole I've been going down, is looking at the equipment and the skills.
You know, if you ever put this on the internet, you were gonna get roasted for liking Diablo 3. You're done, dude. You're done.
That is the rabbit hole that we will commence on next time.
I'm supposed to like Diablo 2, but nobody told me. But we'll continue. We'll continue this conversation or whatever conversation we want to have next week. Thank you, everyone who tuned in. Remember to like, comment, and smash that subscribe button.
See you next week.
See you next week.